Well, the last week or so, I've started to take walks. Started walking 30 to 45 minutes a day. And I've waited until night. Been walking when it's dark out. And what I've noticed over the course of the week is more and more people are putting lights on their house. Right? And it's beautiful to walk down these streets where all the houses are lit by these lights, these Christmas lights, people getting ready for Christmas. And I walk and it always makes me smile knowing that we were ready first. The Billardellos were ready first because we put up our Christmas tree on November 1st because we have a 3-year-old and she wanted the Christmas tree August 1st. And so we negotiated. And so we are probably the only household in America that put up its Christmas tree and then that night went out and bought pumpkins. But our Christmas tree, I'm sure, went up first. And then I made a deal with our dear little daughter that we are not going to be the first house on the street to put up Christmas lights outside, but I promise you we will be the second. And so as soon as another house did it, we put up our lights. So we are ready for Christmas. We are ready for Christmas. We are ready for Christmas in here. Yesterday, a team came and put up our Christmas trees and wreaths and our Advent wreath and got us ready to be in the spirit of the holidays, to be ready for the Christmas season. But before we get to Christmas, we have Advent, a season that actually just starts today. So we're not even close to the end of Advent. Actually, we are just at the beginning. Advent, an entire season in the church calendar, a season that says, hold on, hold on. Let's not rejoice in the birth of the Savior yet. Let's anticipate his coming, and let's reflect on what it might mean for us and what it might mean for the world, because to truly experience the joy of the good news, we need to reflect for a moment and ask ourselves, what does this mean for us? And so in that reflection, I was drawn to this text. You read the same Bible verses over and over again, the same Bible passages over and over again, and you just kind of read over some of these verses, and they just don't hit you until one day you're like, how many times have I read this, and yet I've never truly read this? 1 Thessalonians chapter 3, verse 10, our reading from this morning. May we see you face to face and restore what is ever lacking in your faith. To restore what is ever lacking in your faith. If I've ever heard a reason for Advent, it is this verse. A time to restore what is ever lacking in your faith. To reflect, to ask yourself some questions, to ask God some questions, so that you might be fully prepared to celebrate the joy of the good news of our Savior. Now, first I want to say this. As we talk about faith this morning, let's talk about restoring faith. I am not talking about faith in regards to salvation, because salvation is something that Jesus has done for us, and the Bible clearly tells us that faith the size of a mustard seed is all we need. But I am talking about the faith that we live out each and every day. The faith that we live out each and every day. The faith that we live out in the world. The faith that we live out in our lives. And such a good place to start with this is our psalm today. And I think the writer of our psalm was kind of going through one of these moments. And in our 10 verses today, the writer talks about asking the Lord to teach him. Teach him 3 times. And I think that is the first step we can take in restoring our faith. Lord, teach me. Teach me. There have been periods of my life where I have gone through, I've had this deep desire to learn, a deep desire to learn something. I want to know more about this, whatever it is. And then I go through these periods where I want to take a break from learning. I want to take, everything I need to know, I know, right? Has anyone ever had, I don't need to learn another thing. I'm good. My brain is full to capacity. Don't try and stuff another fact in there. I'm good. I think this Advent is a good season to say, I have a deep yearning, and I thank the choir for singing that today. I have never sat front and center for the choir before. It sounds way different here than it does over there. I was like, wow, this is so different. I've always thought our choir was good, but never that good. I kid. I mean, I've always thought, but I've never heard it that way. I've never heard it front and center, and I just thought it was beautiful. But this yearning to learn more about God, I think a lot of us have that desire to learn more about God, but that's not what the psalmist is talking today. Teach me your paths. It's less I want to know about you and more I want to learn about what your plan is for me. What does it mean to follow you today? What does it mean to be a disciple of Jesus Christ today, in this time and in this place? Teach me that, Lord. And I think what we get to, when we go through that process, what we come to is that the realization is what God is trying to say to us is, trust me. Trust me. And the psalmist mentions that several times in today's passage, that we are to trust God. Lord, I trust you. Trust is a funny thing these days. If you watch television, if you watch the news, and you hear all the bad things going on in the world, it kind of teaches us not to trust each other. Especially if you watch like campaign commercials. Let me give you a reason not to trust him or her. Let me give you and on the other side, it's you can trust me, but don't trust him or her. It's just, if you watch the news, or if you watch TV in and of itself, you just think, people are hard to trust. People are hard to trust. But what advertisers do, the way that they make their money is they try to make you trust stuff, right? You can trust this car to last forever. You can trust this phone to take the best picture of, and so we end up not trusting people, but instead trusting stuff. That's what if you watch enough TV, that's what you end up with. What God says is, trust me. Trust me above everything else. Trust me. And if you trust me, here's what will happen. You will find comfort. You will find comfort. So the first thing we say as we reflect over the season of Advent is, teach me. And the second thing is, comfort me, Lord. Comfort me, Lord. Because there are plenty in this time of Advent who are anxious, who might be afraid, frustrated, or who just have a broken heart. People just have a broken heart. And I love this text from our psalm, starting in verse 6. Remember, O Lord, your compassion and love, for they are from everlasting. Remember not the sins of my youth and my transgressions, but remember me according to your steadfast love and for the sake of your goodness. Basically saying, Lord, assure me that you are who you say you are. Assure me that you are who you say you are. Assure me that you are loving. Assure me that even though I feel unlovable and I feel unworthy and it's just not working for me right now and nobody wants to be around me and I can't get anybody to call me back and nobody's talking to me, nobody's sending me Christmas cards, Lord, assure me that you still love me. Assure me, Lord, that you are present with me. Assure me, Lord, that you promise to be with me from here until the end of the age. Assure me that you are with me when I feel the loneliest, when I feel like nobody is there, when I pray to you and it seems like you're not answering, when everything is going wrong, Lord. Assure me that you are still there. And Lord, assure me that you are forgiving. Assure me that you have forgotten the sins of my youth. Remind me, Lord, that you are not a punishing God, that you are not going to do bad things to me because I struggle to do the right thing. The God we serve and the God who loves us is not a God who sees you make a mistake and says, let me figure out new and exciting ways to punish you. Our God is not a God who punishes. Our God is a God who loves. And it's comforting to know that. And it's so different than the way that we all are, right? We put up that Christmas tree on November 1st, but let me tell you, we threaten to take it down every single day. if we needed to stop our daughter in her tracks, we would say, if you do that, or if you don't do this, we are taking down the Christmas tree right now. And she'd go, because that's what humans do. But God does not punish, and God does not even threaten to punish. God promises to love. So may we be comforted. And then, for many, this season is difficult. It's difficult because life is difficult. And so some of us might say, Lord, in this season, give me a reason to be excited. Give me a reason to be excited. In our gospel today, the Gospel of Luke, Jesus talks about the second coming of Christ. Every time I read this, the REM song, It's the End of the World as We Know It, goes through my mind. And I asked Vanessa to sing that today, and she said, no. So, wouldn't that have been cool, though? Wouldn't that have been cool? I probably shouldn't have asked her on Thursday afternoon, but... Oops, sorry about that. But the end of the world, it's something we don't like talking about. It's something we don't like thinking about. But whether it's the end of the world itself or just the end of this world for each of us, it's not fun to think about. It's not fun to think about. When I think about it, I think about what I might miss out on. And I get a little sad. And maybe I get a little afraid because I don't exactly know how it's going to happen. But Jesus is the end. I had it written originally that Jesus is at the end. That's not really right. Jesus is the end. The end of this world for me, or the end of the world itself, is Jesus. I'm reminded of volunteering at the Special Olympics. And if you volunteer at the Special Olympics, there's all kind of jobs, like at a track meet, Can you be the timer? Can you do this? Or can you be a hugger? And I thought, well, what is that? They said, well, you just stand at the finish line, and as soon as the athletes cross the line, you give them a hug. And I thought, well, I want to do that. And then I thought, that's what life is like, isn't it? Once we cross that finish line, we are so concerned about showing up in like a courtroom or something, all these images of showing up and being judged, and God sitting upon the throne and looking down at you and saying, well, on December 4th, you did this. And the end is a hug. The end is love. The end is Jesus. That's something to be excited about, because Jesus is the end of this, but the beginning of something else. The beginning of something better. The beginning of something where all the stuff that we don't like about this life and this world isn't welcome. That is something to be excited about. So in this time of Advent, this time of reflection, this time of restoring your faith, may you turn to God and say, teach me. And may you learn to trust God. May you be comforted by God's love, God's presence, and God's forgiveness. And may you be excited by the hope that we all have in Jesus Christ. And may your faith be fully restored so that joy abounds when you hear the good news of our Savior's birth. Amen.